Senior forecaster at the South African Weather Service, Puseletso Mofokeng, joins us now to talk about the areas in which have been cautioned to be in the path of storms and heavy rains. Puseletso, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Let's just first start with the areas in which a red alert has been issued.
Good evening, Tsepiso. Good evening to the viewers as well. Yes, we have given level 9. It's actually not red, but they call it what? I'm actually colorblind. I apologize. So it's level 9. It's given for the wild coast of the Eastern Cape, including the adjacent interior. We can go as far inland as Umtata. Also in the Ugu district municipality in KwaZulu-Natal, including eThekwini up to the north coast. That's where we've given orangey level 9.
Okay.
But beyond that, I do think that the eastern areas of Mpumalanga are also having a level 9. Those include areas like Sabi, include areas like Hoedspruit in Limpopo, Bombela, around the Belfast, and also Mkondo. Those are the areas where we've given a level 9 for today, including in Bozini. That's where we have a level 9. But other places, I think it's lower levels. But yes, level 9 is in those two big areas.
Perhaps if you can explain to us what a level 9 really denotes. I mean, for those of us who are not meteorologists and who deal with the traditional, if you take a traffic light, for instance, we know that red is danger, orange is, a cautionary alert, and green not all a sign to proceed. So if you can just take us through, because some of us see that map through the colors. There they are, we've put them up on the screen. If you could just explain to us what level 9 is, what it denotes, and perhaps then move up to what we see there as green.
Well, I did say earlier that I'm colorblind, yes. But let me try.
You can deal with it in terms of levels. Yeah. So we see level 1,
level
2.
9, which is where we've marked A. So a level 9 necessarily means a lot to the disaster management. In other words, as we have picked up, the KwaZulu-Natal province have actually set up the disaster management responses for this evening. This is in response to that level 9. But if, for example, you turn that and take it to the people in general, for instance, we had those floods in Pretoria earlier today. It really doesn't matter whether it's level 9. You saw the cars where were submerged. It wouldn't matter for an individual being under the floods. So the floods is what we're expecting generally in this ABC. That's where we're expecting floods. But for disaster management, those levels are very much important, because then they're informing them as to how much resources they have to execute in order to assist their communities.
Okay. KwaZulu-Natal, we understand that there are alerts of storms, heavy rains, and possible flooding. Which areas in particular, and are these areas which have previously experienced, flood damage?
Most certainly, this would be the about fourth time in about 5 years. You would remember that in 2019, Amatole district municipality also got affected by flooding and also the mudslide, including those areas in Ugu, eThekwini. So if you remember, it was there in 2019. This year it happened both in April. I do know that most of the time we would refer to April as the sort of the event that we remember a lot, more especially that we lost a lot of lives, which is very unfortunate. But on the second event in May, I think there was a little bit more preparedness in terms of response, so there were lower incidents on the second event. So this one is the fourth one. Yes, in terms of the impact itself, it may not be exactly as it was in April. But remembering that we still have vulnerable areas that are clearly still being worked out to go back to their original stage. In other words, they are still being restored. So the kind of rainfall that we are going to have, it may not be of the same impact, but because the vulnerability has been significantly highlighted, we therefore have opted to go for level 9. More especially that we can, I do know that for some people the day has ended, but for us we are still expecting more rainfall to come in. The moisture, the inflow of moisture from the sea onto the land is still expected to persist. So for that reason, we can still expect this rainfall from around 10 o'clock. Already I can see that the figures are high. We're already seeing some areas having millimeters beyond 20 millimeters. So we can expect that by the evening, these conditions will actually be worse, and obviously going into tomorrow. But before we go to tomorrow, we have to remember that even those areas where we've marked yellow level or level 2 to level 5, those areas are still quite significant. It's not only the points where we've marked A that actually means there will be flooding. There could be flooding anywhere. So this is only referring to the disaster management to prepare the kind of resources that they have to prepare. But otherwise, for human beings, for us as communities, I think any disaster or any flooding is actually quite impactful.
Puseletso, I'd like to stay with that, how ordinary members of society interpret the warnings and the help that you bring about for disaster management. As KwaZulu-Natal has already said that it's put out alerts, and some of those that have been urged to move away have been residents of the Big Five, Hlabisa, Josini, KwaDugu, Zamandeni, Mapumulo. All of those that you said have been affected in the past, but often there is a concentration on low-lying areas. And I recall the last time, as you mentioned, was actually in May, when people were crossing roads, crossing bridges with cars, thinking that the levels of water were low, but actually ended up being swept away. How do you make a value judgment of whether it is safe enough to cross, and should you even risk it?
Well, that is quite a conundrum, basically. The idea is for the communities to necessarily take precaution. In other words, once you see the river is full, even if you really have to cross to the other side, rather you can stay on the other side where just to save life. I think maybe I can say this as my own personal story. When there was Eloise in 2021, just when we thought the battle is over, then the system came back. I think there was a community member in Limpopo who actually moved to another side because it was clear there. The rainfall was no longer there, but it was coming in the afternoon. By the time it comes, then the lady tried to cross back, and then she was swept away by the water. That event actually took me to counseling because I was actually at the point of saying we have won the battle. We have actually kept the numbers low. I think there were about 8 people who we lost, but that last one was quite tragic. So basically, yes, the community have to make the judgment by themselves. But if in case it's beyond like the kind of impacts we had in April and May, obviously disaster management has to come in. This time around, quite correctly, the province of KwaZulu-Natal has actually reacted quite positively in terms of moving people away, and I understood the response from the MEC of Kokta, Mr. Sifesi, that the people are responding quite positively, which is quite positive even for us. In fact, that is also a case for the Eastern Cape as well. I think you had seen also the disaster management here in Tshwane also reacting in terms of those disasters that we experienced.
Let's thank you very much for your time and explaining that to us. Senior forecaster Puseletso Mofokeng about the weather warnings that have been issued for various parts of the country.